Good day, I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard. Today is May 4th, 2023. You're watching the Alberta Report coverage, special coverage of the Alberta election campaign. We're going to dive straight into it. Of course, I'm joined as usual by Western Standard opinion editor Nigel Hannaford.
Good to be here.
And Western Standard news editor Dave Naylor.
And we will have breaking news on Premier Smith's press conference happening basically right now.
Do we want to start with that?
We can. I can tell you.
Have at it.
Well, this is the UCP's economic diversification plan. And to me, the most interesting thing is they're offering a come to Alberta bonus. So if you move to Alberta from anywhere in the country and stay here at least a year, you get $1,200 cash payment. They're also creating tuition tax incentives anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000 for graduating students who stay in the province and ply their trade there. So just a way to get more workers into the province and broaden that tax base.
So the UCP will literally pay NDP voters to move to Alberta.
Exactly.
So do you have to have a job before you get the $1,000?
That's a good question. I would think you have to make some
They
sort
should
of
probably
contribution.
attach some strings to it. You
I
know,
would
so
hope
people
so.
can't come here to show up and collect welfare. We don't know that.
You do have to live here and contribute for a year, I'm guessing.
I'm sure there'll be something like that.
Yeah.
Good.
The NDP's job creation plan. For that, we're going to bring in Arthur Green, the Western Standard's Alberta legislative reporter based in Edmonton. Arthur, you were there yesterday. I recall reading in the article, Rachel Notley declined to take all reporters' questions, but nonetheless, you were there. Tell us about the NDP's jobs plan proposal.
So yesterday, Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley laid out her plan for good-paying jobs for Albertans, and it's a new proposed tax credit. It's called Alberta's Future Tax Credit, and it's the NDP's plan to grow jobs here in the province, which will cost roughly $400 million. If we look back to December 2022. Notley said this Alberta's future tax credit is estimated to cost $250 million annually. She quoted back in December that it would create roughly 20,000 jobs. Now, that number on Wednesday, she promised to attract $20 billion in private sector investment to the province while creating 47,000 jobs in Alberta's energy sector.
And what's been the reaction of the UCP to their announcement so far?
I just sent off a question to Smith. I know she's having a news conference this morning. And my question was simply, Rachel Notley came out with this jobs plan yesterday, but she's also open to increasing the corporate tax. So, it kind of seems a little hypocritical. And I asked, of course, the UCP leader, Danielle Smith, what her thoughts are on this. And I'm just waiting to hear back.
Yeah, I think, we were also listening to Rachel Notley on the Chorus Radio Network today with Shay Ganem. She was asked about taxes, and she committed to not raising personal income taxes. And personal income taxes are actually technically higher than they were when she was premier, because Jason Kenney de-indexed them for inflation. So they've actually gone up slightly, but they are more or less, other than 4 years of inflation, they are more or less where Rachel Notley was. But she was careful on using careful little words that, she would raise taxes on businesses. But it's not, this strikes me, Nigel, as, it's a center-left policy announcement, but it's not radically different from what you're seeing from the UCP, other than their stances on business taxes. That aside, this jobs platform, I think, is it's trying to strike kind of towards the middle, similar to Smith's announcement today. It's more money for businesses and people if you create jobs, rather than just cutting taxes to allow businesses to create jobs.
Well, there's actually a lot in here, as you would expect, with a $400 million tax bill. And of course, she was asked yesterday, how do you pay for this? And she says, it'll pay for itself. And I couldn't help thinking of Mr.
She did actually use those words today.
Yeah, she well, it's obviously a theme then, because she said it yesterday as well. don't worry, it'll pay for itself. And it's a little bit like Mr. Trudeau looking at the, don't forget these budgets pay for pay for themselves.
She does have a case to make that you can. I mean, a similar case is made for lowering taxes on people and on businesses. That if you lower, now I think there's probably less evidence to suggest that it would be the case here. But if you lower taxes on businesses create more economic activity and therefore actually pay more in taxes overall, even though there's a lower rate. I think she's trying to argue that if we subsidize businesses to create jobs, well, that'll create more tax revenue overall. I think there's less evidence to support that, but I mean, it's not probably as far out as Justin Trudeau's budget.
Look, what else is she going to say? I mean, you've got to say something because there is that. It's a fair question. How are you going to pay for it? And what she's actually doing is saying, okay, no, let's move on. That's taken care of. It'll pay for itself. Next question. So no. There are some serious questions about this. I mean, look, just for one thing, $1,200 to say you're a tradesman and you're in BC or anywhere. You can get $1,200 for moving to Alberta. That might appeal to you. And suddenly you've got a tradesman without all these training programs that Rachel Notley is proposing, which, by the way, are a payoff to her union allies. You'll notice that in that $18 million training program, there's part of this $400 million package that we're talking about.
I believe was actually announced, correct me if I'm wrong, Arthur, I believe this was actually announced in front of a union headquarters.
It
was, yes.
It was announced at Local 488. UA Local 488 here in Edmonton. And in the $400 million, like Nigel mentioned, the NDP plans to invest $18 million into union-led training facilities and consult on expanding the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation to include other sectors.
Well, there you go.
As Nigel was kind of hinting, if you're a business in downtown Toronto and you're looking at Alberta, and you see the UCP cutting business taxes, you see the NDP raising business taxes, it's an easy decision.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I think both parties have to worry about throwing up big figure promises with the plunging price of oil, right? Because all of a sudden a $500 million promise when oil's at $80 doesn't seem a big problem. Now oil's hovering around $70. That's a big loss to the treasury.
There's a dark side. Of course, I want oil to remain high. It's all good for us. But there's a dark side of me that would like oil to plunge during the campaign so that both parties could answer for why they don't plan for the future. But, they always budget in their promises up to the maximum of what oil they hope will be. And they just don't plan. So there's a part of me that would just like to see the parties have to readjust their promises, because they do this. Every party does this every time.
And if they'd only got it right a couple generations ago, we'd be like Norway. We would have so much money we wouldn't know what to do with it.
What fools we mortals be.
We are.
Okay. So thank you for joining us, Arthur. There's one point I want to touch on from Rachel Notley's appearance on the Shay Ganem show with Chorus today. She was asked about, she was going after Smith, saying, well, Smith might not have a mandate to privatize healthcare, but she might do it anyway. And Jay Ganem had a pretty good question for her then. I said, well, you did have a mandate for a carbon tax, but you did it anyway. And Rachel Notley danced around it a bit, but effectively came to the position, to paraphrase her as fairly as I can here, I think, that, well, I had a mandate to do it because I didn't say I wouldn't do it. So I guess there's positive campaign promises and negative campaign promises. So does this mean if you don't promise to do anything, if you make no promises whatsoever during the campaign and you just don't say anything and you get elected, you could do anything you want? I think that's what she's saying. And when it boils down to it, we're happy when the party we support does things that we like without a mandate, and we don't like it when another party does things that we don't support without a mandate. That's really what it boils down to. But that was her justification for how she brought in the carbon taxes. Well, I didn't say I wouldn't do it.
Well, it sounds a bit feeble, doesn't it? But what we elect people to govern, to make what they believe are good decisions on behalf of all of us. Sometimes when you're proposing a major change to society, you should run it specifically by the voters. I think carbon tax is one of those things. It's a major change because of the philosophy that underlies it, where they even call carbon dioxide pollution, which it manifestly isn't. That perhaps there should have been a mandate for, but I will give any party this much: that we elect you, do a good job with what's in front of you, make smart decisions. You shouldn't have to come back to the voters for every single little thing.
Yeah.
And just look at in Calgary, Mayor Gondek campaigns away, mentions nothing. Day she gets into office, $87 billion climate plan.
Now there's a big one.
Okay, should you not have talked about this on the hustings? $87 billion.
That number rings a bell, $87 billion.
It
But in
does.
that case, it was their own number.
It was.
They said it was going to cost.
Oh,
So,
man.
So when it comes to the modeling out on the seat projections, I think we're going to save that for tomorrow. But let's just quickly touch on, I don't think it's happened yet today, but actually maybe taking place right now. But maybe Dave, tell us, what can we expect? Notley says she's going to make a pitch to
The undecided.
Yes.
She's making a pitch to the undecided.
She just explicitly said she's making a pitch to people who have voted Conservative in the past.
Right. So it's people that don't like Danielle Smith, probably voted for Jason Kenney, voted for Ralph Klein, the traditional UCP Conservative leaders. Now they don't like Danielle Smith, so they're wavering. What should I do? What should I do? Do I plug my nose and vote for Notley, or do I just stay home? So those are the people she's going to be addressing directly today.
And I don't think we've actually seen what her pitch is yet on this.
No,
right?
not yet.
I don't know. Okay, Nigel, if you're Rachel Notley has hired you as her speechwriter for today, and you're going to write this speech, and you get to lay out what is the pitch you're making to people who have voted Conservative in the past. Let's call them like bit more mushy centrist, progressive Conservatives. I doubt she's really making a pitch for Wild Rose type Conservatives here, but let's say she's making a pitch to more progressive Conservatives here. What are the actual, I guess, two things. What are you putting forward in the shop window policy-wise to say, okay, we could be a place that moderate progressive Conservatives can vote for? And then second, what are you putting forward in the messaging, the language used to make those kinds of red Tory Conservatives comfortable enough to vote for Rachel Notley and the NDP?
So here's the thing that comes back to me through the gossip channel, that people who you would expect to be voting for the UCP as a matter of course are saying something, well, I don't like the NDP, and I kind of can't imagine ever voting for them, but I don't like Danielle Smith. So there's nothing about the UCP policies that they're rejecting. It is the personality of, shall I say, the portrayal of the personality of Danielle Smith that the NDP has been very effectively making. So so I know what I would say to them if I were writing for Danielle Smith, but if I were actually composing something for Rachel Notley, I probably wouldn't go much into policy side of it. I would go on the feelings end of it, and I'd say something like, my friends, we all want the same thing, don't we? We want a better Alberta. We want a better future. Our policies are not so destructive that that we're going to take anything away from you, but you need a leader who is going to lead in the same direction and not get her facts wrong. So, Reagan did this when he did his famous speech asking the Blue Dog Democrats to come over to the Republican side in the 1984 US presidential election. She would model herself on that speech.
Wow, it's no wonder Stephen Harper paid you those big bucks. That's gold, man. That's gold.
It's gold.
Well, unfortunately, I'm the guy who lost the 2015 election. Remember that?
Yes.
It was all your fault. Okay, Nigel, Dave, thank you very much for joining us.
You.
And thank all of you for joining us on today's Alberta Report. Remember, if you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandard.news, click on membership. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year for unlimited access to the Western Standard, supporting and getting access to really the only bailout-free media left in Western Canada. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
The current Lethbridge feed grain prices are as follows. Cash barley is holding at $4.10. Feed wheat slipped $2 to $4.04, while corn is lower $2 at $3.96. In the milling wheat markets, July Minneapolis futures added 4.5 cents at 8.08 per bushel, with local hard red spring bid for May movement at 10.30 per bushel delivered. Over to the canola market, nearby canola futures decreased $3.60 at $712.30 per ton, with delivered values for May movement at $15.92 per bushel. In the pulse markets, nearby red lentils are unchanged at 35 cents a pound, and yellow peas are at $11.50 per bushel. Looking at the cattle markets, June live cattle added 30 cents at $161.95 per hundredweight. For more information on pricing and picked up on-farm options, give me a call at 403-394-1711. I'm Vera Buziak at Marketplace Commodities. Accurate real-time marketing information and pricing options.
Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Without the CSSA, our gun rights would have been taken long ago. These guys are on the front lines helping to draft smart and intelligent firearms regulations and legislation in Canada, and more importantly, educating the public about how we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. To become a member, it's absolutely worth every penny. You can become a Western Standard member for just $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited access.